Postoji nevidljivi kod svemira. On je sve prisutan, a izražen je kroz oblike i geometriju, kao i kroz matematičke odnose. Najslavniji je pod imenom zlatni rez, ali za te riječi krije se čitavo područje fraktalne geometrije koju se počelo prepoznavati tek 70. i 80. godina 20. stoljeća. No, čini se da su je ljudi u starini ipak bili svjesni. Ona je bila posvuda oko njih, a i danas je, od atoma do galaksije, od puža do čovjeka, od DNK do slona. A što nam ona govori? Za početak da se na temelju svakog dijelića može znati sve o cjelini, ali i puno više od toga. Američki autor nekoliko knjiga o fraktalnoj geometriji Matthew Cross izvukao je značajne pouke iz formule o ustroju svemira i pretočio ih u formule za život, jer život je oduvijek bio fraktalan po naravi, barem ovdje, na rubu znanosti. Dobro večer. Matthew Cross poznat je po dvije odvojene, mada i povezane stvari. U jednom alter egu on je jedan od vrhunskih svjetskih poslovnih stratega i savjetnika, a na drugoj strani autor nekoliko knjiga o fraktalnoj geometriji. No, kako ćemo vidjeti, te su dvije stvari povezanije nego što se može činiti na prvi pogled. No, u svemiru fraktalne geometrije sve je povezano. Dobro večer.
Yes, good evening.
Pa eto, za početak, danas pojam fraktalna geometrija nije toliko nepoznat koliko je bi možda bio 80-ih ili 90-ih, s obzirom da je dobio svoj naziv od matematičara Mandelbrota negdje krajem 70-ih, početkom 80-ih. No, što u stvari jest fraktalna geometrija i kakve veze ona ima i sa poznatim brojčanim nizom, Fibonaccijevim, i tu postoje nekakve osnove koje je uvijek vrijedno ponoviti, dovoljno su jednostavne, a opet i dovoljno lako zaboravljive.
Indeed, yes. Well, at its essence, fractals speak about a small part that has the pattern of the whole. Fundamentally, fractal geometry is a language, one could say. It's a formula that's at work at every scale in the universe. It is where a small part has a pattern of the complete whole. One can see this in every scale one observes in nature. We can see it in the gentle curve and spiral of your fingers, your hand, your elbow. That spiral is the same spiral as an ocean wave, as a hurricane, as a galaxy. So it's a pattern. It is a pattern that has the complete imprint of a whole in a small part. And the geometry that is probably most prevalent in the universe is the formula is the golden ratio. The Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, are formulas and codes that show us that there is indeed a code for linking the micro and macro at every level in the universe. And so fractals essentially speak to the principle that all is in small. This is a quote from Yogi Bhajan that basically says, you can find the whole of anything in a meaningful part of anything. So you can look at the geometry of our cellular structure, our DNA, and you can, in a sense, intuit and understand the whole structure of the body. You can look at any part of the body and realize that the golden ratio is at play in the joints of the fingers in the relation to one another, the lengths of the fingers to the hand, the length of the hand to the elbow, and a scale that just repeats again and again and again from the small to the large.
Objasnite nam Fibonaccijev niz, kakav je to brojčani niz, i pojam koji ste upotrijebili, zlatni rez, koji je najpoznatiji iz umjetnosti, ali nije nevažno ovdje imati na umu i brojčane odnose koji su povezani sa zlatnim rezom, koji u stvari također fraktali, jer je riječ o odnosu dužih i kraćih dužina. A Fibonaccijev niz, koji je njegov princip i kako ćemo njega postupno otkrivati, to nam isto možete reći.
Yes. Well, the Fibonacci sequence is simply a sequence of numbers that begins with 0 and goes 0, 1, 1. It began with 0 plus 1, which equals 1. And then 1 plus 0 equals 1. So it's 0 plus 1 equals 1. And then it's 1 plus 1 equals 2. And then 2 plus 1 equals 3. and 3 plus 2 equals 5. The sequence goes 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, where each term is the sum of the previous two terms. So, for example, 8 is the sum of 5 and 3. It's an infinite sequence that goes on for eternity. It has no end. The fascinating thing about this sequence is that the numbers in the Fibonacci sequence can be found all throughout nature. In the numbers of seeds in the face of a sunflower, anywhere you look in the rotations of spirals, we find the Fibonacci sequence is, in a sense, the code of nature. It's what nature uses to blueprint and pattern matter and describes the spirals and the movements of energy in the universe. Now, what's fascinating about that is that the distance between the numbers in the Fibonacci sequence reveals what's known as the golden ratio, the divine proportion, or the golden mean. And that's a ratio of 1.618 to 1. So it's a number, it's called phi, it's an irrational number like pi, 3.14, but 1.618 is essentially the model of perfection in the universe. Everything is gravitating towards this ratio. And the Fibonacci sequence is, in a sense, nature's language for bringing the perfection of the golden ratio, 1.618, into function in the universe, fundamentally. And what that means is that, for example, in our body, the ratio of a joint in the finger is 0.618 to the rest of the finger, 0.1. So you've got 1.618. And the length of the finger is 1 to the length of the hand, 0.618. So we find it repeating at every scale in the body. So fundamentally, the Fibonacci sequence is the sequence of numbers that frames and illustrates the golden ratio of 1.618.
Kada se priča o zlatnom rezu, recimo i to da je riječ o jednoj točki na jednoj dužini, koja tu dužinu dijeli na takav način da je duži dio, cijela dužina prema dužem dijelu se odnosi isto kao duža prema kraćem. Ono što je zanimljivo također kod Fibonaccijevog niza, naravno ta točka može biti 0,6 ili 1,6, ovisno da li se gleda prema većoj ili maloj dužini. Zanimljivo je što kada se svaki prethodni broj pomnožen, dakle kada se brojevi međusobno dijele, recimo ili množi, u ovom slučaju dijele, recimo 5:8 ili 8/5, da se na razne načine uvijek između tih brojeva uzastopnih koji se podvrgnu množenju ili dijeljenju opet dobiva nešto što je vrlo blisko tom broju 1,6 ili 0,6, ovisno s koje se strane pristupi 5/8 ili 8/5, međutim nikada potpuno. Kakva je priroda tog odnosa koji se, dakle, na geometrijski način može izraziti kao dužina, a eto matematički ga vidimo u Fibonaccijevoj skali kao rezultat dijeljenja ili množenja dva uzastopna broja?
It can be expressed in every dimension, in a small volume to a large volume. An excellent example is in the function, for example, of the human heart. The human heart, both in its function and its structure, exhibits and reflects the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence, for that matter. The human heartbeat is not a 50-50 function. It's not boom, 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 50-50, 50-50. Instead, it's bump, 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 40-60, 40-60, 40-60. And the structure of the heart is a golden spiral. Every contraction of our heart, every heartbeat is in essence diagramming a golden spiral. A spiral that grows by 1.618 times with every revolution. The human heart is a golden spiral in motion. Every heartbeat of our life is a golden spiral. And so any volume, any energy can be optimized, can be made more efficient, made more harmonious, made more flowing when it comes closer to this golden ratio. And so at every scale, again, the universe uses this golden ratio principle, which again is a principle of perfection. It doesn't actually exist in this dimension. It's like perfection. We strive towards it like a North Star. We're always moving towards it. Our evolution, in a sense, our personal transformation and evolution is always endeavoring to move towards perfection. We're dancing on and off and on and off this principle. The Fibonacci sequence illustrates it and kind of brings it down to earth. Nature uses these numbers in the placement of seeds, in the ratios of spiraling plants as they grow. Nature uses the Fibonacci sequence to approximate this perfection principle of the golden ratio. And like you said, in the beginning stages of the Fibonacci sequence, 5 over 8, and then 13 over 8, and so forth. Going forward, it's an approximate 1.6, 1.61, 1.62. As the numbers in the Fibonacci sequence grow, we start to see it get closer and closer and closer. For example, 89 over 55, which is a little later in the Fibonacci sequence, is the first time we see 1.618. But then the numbers and decimals after are always changing, moving closer, 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 closer to the perfection of 1.618, but it never gets there. So nature approximates this with a Fibonacci sequence.
Kada pričamo, evo, i na seminaru u Zagrebu koji ćete uskoro održati, bit će predstavljeno puno brojki koje ste i u knjigama objavili, gdje se recimo poglavlja također broje po Fibonaccijevom nizu, pa neka nikog ne začudi 144. poglavlje u ovako tankoj knjizi. No, kao god da bilo, mi to možemo taj odnos naći svuda. Recimo na klaviru u oktavi jednoj zapravo imamo 13 tonova, od toga je 5 crnih tipki, 8 bijelih, znači sve nabrojano su Fibonaccijeve brojke. I tako dalje. Vi ste, prije nego što se bacimo još na neke brojke, skovali izraz koji se zove fraktalna spoznaja, Fractal Cognition. Što bi to bilo u kontekstu, zbog čega je toliko značajno i ovi primjere koje ćemo kasnije navesti i kako nas to vodi do nečeg što bismo mogli nazvati fraktalna spoznaja, što ste uopće po tim mislili?
Well, the science, the art of fractal cognition is understanding that fractals, the principle of self-similarity, the principle of a small part holding the knowledge or pattern of the whole part, is at work at every scale. We live in a fractal universe. And so the notion, the concept of fractal cognition says that if you can identify, if you can consider a small part of anything, for example, take Beethoven, take dun 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 dun. Your brain instantly can recreate the entire symphony. Your brain has the memory to take from those first few bars the entire symphony in your mind. The first chapter, the first few words in a book, the first few lines in a song. I use in my seminars that deal with introducing fractal cognition, I use a picture of a small part, just a small part, the bottom leg, let's say, use this in your imagination, of the Eiffel Tower. Just the small part. If I show you a photograph of just a part, a fractal of the Eiffel Tower, instantly your brain recognizes it and can create the whole. And so fractal cognition essentially says that our brain is always looking for meaningful parts. Whether we're conscious of it or not, meaningful parts that can help give us navigational intelligence of the whole. Another example is when you meet someone. When you meet someone, the first few moments of connection with that person's eyes gives you a fractal of the future relationship. Your brain is already creating and assimilating and integrating and forming a larger picture of that person, how their presence is holding you, the connections that are being made, and so forth. The fractal principle is similar, the fractal cognition principle is similar to the butterfly effect, that basically says that something very small in the beginning of the experience, if we pay attention to it, if we're aware of it, if we nurture it, if our radar is on, can turn into something very big very quickly. And so fractal cognition merely is honoring the principle of efficiency that's at work all the time in nature, that's at work in the universe, it's at work in the human brain. But most of us are not aware of it. And it simply says, pay attention. Pay attention to the small things. Because many times those small things, when you bring them together, can rapidly create a pattern that allows you to identify and better understand the whole of anything that you're looking to learn, to understand, to explain.
Evo, da ne bi ostalo sve na nepraktičnom, reći ću da se u nekim od vaših knjiga koje ste radili u suradnji s ljudima, doći ćemo poslije na to, radi o praktičnoj primjeni na zdravlje, disanje i tako dalje, upravo principa zlatnog reza. No prije nego što dođemo do tamo, možemo ga malo napraviti jednu šetnju kroz svemir, makro, mikro, životinje, ljude i vidjeti gdje i na koje načine je sve najčudnije utkano. Recimo, zanimljiva je činjenica da Planckova duljina jest 1,62 puta 10 na minus 35, što opet na neki čudan način predstavlja zlatni rez ili recimo odnos orbita Venera, Marsa i Zemlje i njihovih udaljenosti ili broja orbita. Pa na koji način recimo evo naša bliski kozmički susjedi Venera, Mars su povezani sa Zemljom, opet jedan fraktalni uzorak koji je jednostavno tamo na neki čudan kako ste rekli, neobjašnjiv način da uvijek podsjeća da se obrati pažnju. Koja je to veza koju bismo mogli nazvati svemirsko-fraktalnom iz bliskog susjedstva?
Well, essentially, the golden ratio is the formula again that the universe, we could say that if God had a formula for the way the universe is built and architected, all the matter in the universe and all the energy in the universe tends to follow the fractal law of the golden ratio. Again, the large part can be seen in the small part. So we can look at the orbit of Venus, for example, that dances around Earth, and we can see again and again and again repetition of fractal geometry. We see beautiful five-pointed stars in the way, the shape of a five-pointed star, in the way Venus dances around Earth, in Fibonacci numbers. And so at every level, the distance of the planets, for example, from the Sun, the distance of Mercury, and then the distance of Venus, and the distance to Earth and Mars and so forth, the distance of those planets from the Sun as they move away is very, very close to the golden ratio. It's never just 50%, 50%, 50%. We find that there's a golden ratio between the distances of the planets from the Sun. The Pythagoras described it as the music of the spheres. There is a dance and a musicality and a beautiful sacred geometry that speaks to the harmony of the way the planets are positioned, of the way the planets orbit one another, of even the orbit of the moon around the Earth and the relative size of the moon to the circumference of the Earth. All of these things we can look and we see and we can find the golden ratio with tremendous precision and perfection.
Pa doista jest kada se pogleda, evo recimo ako se uzme jedan Venera Zemlja, da je Zemlja Mars 1,6 na neki čudan način, kao da je cijeli svemir pomalo nalikuje nekadašnjoj staroj ideji jednog stroja, ali ovaj puta stroj nije baš potpuno precizno podešen, nego se stalno sam podešava. Kad je riječ o prirodi, tu su primjeri zaista brojni. Od sljevova rijeka, stabala koje reflektiraju u grančicama oblik cijelog stabla. No, zanimljivo je da se tako grane u stablu u potrazi za svjetlom. Kakve su veze, recimo, fraktalne geometrije sa životinjama? Recimo, u knjizi ste spomenuli pčele, koje su jako dobar primjer, ali i delfine, slonove, pa kako su oni geometrijski složeni?
Yes, absolutely. At every scale in the animal kingdom, and of course in the human body, we can find the golden ratio repeated over and over again. In the relationships of the joints in the body, in the relationships of primary features on fish, on dolphins, the curve of a cheetah's tail, for example, which the cheetah is using to stabilize itself as it races along at high speed, that curve of the tail is in a golden spiral, invariably. The curve of the solid of the claw of the cheetah is a golden spiral. The ratios of the major joints and parts in the animal kingdom, golden ratios over and over again. It's the principle of maximum efficiency for the structure of matter, and in the movements of the animal kingdom, we see it again and again. Bees don't just fly in a straight line. They fly in all sorts of beautiful golden spirals in their movement. That's their movement. In the structure of their body, the very segments of the bee itself, we find the small part to the large part of the bee reflects this 1 to 0.618 relationship. Or more simply explained, if we really bring it down, it's approximately 60% to 40%. 60-40 is an approximation of the 1.618 to 1 golden ratio. To make it really simple, if we bring it down to 2 digits, it's 62-38. If we get even simpler, it's about 60-40. Nature doesn't do 50-50. Nature doesn't do this lockstep linearity of half and half. Nature loves 2/3 to 1/3. Or a little closer, 60-40. Or a little closer, 62-38. Or a little closer, 0.618 to 0.382. Nature loves to get close to this in the way it segments parts of a bee's body. The human body. Most of us, from the head to the navel and the navel to the feet, is the golden ratio. That is, it's approximately 0.38, 40% of our height is from our head to our navel. And from our navel to our feet is approximately 62 or 60% of our height. At every scale, we find this repeated over and over and over again in the dance of life, the dance of animals, the dance of insects, the beautiful movement of the human form, it's reflected. We don't move in straight lines, we move in spirals. These tend to be golden spirals because it's nature's path of least resistance and maximum efficiency and performance. That quote is from Dr. Ron Sandler, who is a genius American medical doctor or podiatrist who recognized this pattern in human training and performance in athletics. And he recognized that this pattern of rising and falling, of like an ocean wave, that if an athlete in any sport trains according to this beautiful principle of the golden ratio, that athlete can predict peak performance and efficiency in whatever their sport is, and predict peak performance weeks and months in advance without getting injured along the way because they're training with nature as opposed to just training lockstep with logic. We could say that the golden ratio is a prime unifying factor. It supports the unification of our hemispheres. It brings the right and left hemispheres of the brain together to create something even greater, synergy. Synergy of form and function. It's the reason, for some mysterious reason, again, God's code. If God had a code for the architecture of matter at every scale in the universe and the movement of energy through this beautiful universe, again and again and again, we find this simple, beautiful principle of a small part to a large part, the small part being about 40%, the large part being about 60%, that comes together to form a more harmonious whole. A whole structure of matter, a whole performance. Take the greatest music video in history by most accounts, Michael Jackson's Thriller. And at the precise golden ratio point of Michael Jackson's video, which is a little over 13 minutes in length, at the precise golden ratio point, approximately 62% through the video, at the crescendo, at the apex of the video, he turns into that amazing, mesmerizing, dancing zombie. Many artists bring this principle through just because they're more tapped into their creative link with the divine. Others have been known to bring it consciously. Debussy, for example, the composer Debussy used it in his composition of many of his symphonies. And there are many artists who are known to have used it in the composition of their paintings. It's evident again and again in Da Vinci's work. So, again, to answer your original question, at every scale of the natural kingdom, we see it exhibited in the structure and movement of life, because it's the pattern of flow.
Kad se već govori o božanskom jeziku, možemo se sjetiti da je poznata rečenica Johannesa Keplera koji je rekao Bog je geometrija, to znači da jednostavno stavio znak jednakosti. Već smo pričali o tim nekim Planckovoj duljini koja također ima taj 1,62. Potom je naravno zanimljivo kako su povezane recimo jedan mikrosvijet, znači naša DNK koja opet ima promjer 21:34, što su opet dva broja iz Fibonaccija i slično. Na koji način i kako se može znači koristiti u raznim aspektima za zdravlje na praktičan način zlatni rez? U knjizi koju ste napravili u suradnji s jednim čovjekom ima puno primjera, čak i recimo konkretno pobjednik ovog triatlona Ironmana na Havajima, šestostruki, ja mislim, da on koristi recimo zlatni rez u spavanju, 9 sati spavanja, 15 sati aktivnosti. Pa kako uopće sve te brojke koje možemo zapravo vidjeti u prehrani na neki način možemo uskladiti? Dobar je primjer što neki kažu da trebamo imati recimo oko 40% ugljikohidrata, 30% masti, 30% proteina, reklo bi se preciznije možda 62:38 ukupno, ali nećemo biti sad sitničavi prema Božjem kodu. Pa kako se može i na koji način je prehrana ili san ili sportski trening baš prilagoditi na temelju toga što priroda nudi kao obrazac posvuda?
That's a absolutely wonderful question. And it's a question that I've been pondering for over 2 decades with my co-author. My co-author is an American medical doctor who is a genius of the distillation of these principles into medical application. And we've collaborated on 4 books so far that bring the spirit and essence of the golden ratio to practical application for maximum health, peak health, performance, and longevity. Our latest book is a 500-page magnum opus called Nature's Secret Nutrient. And it's golden ratio biomimicry, fundamentally. The golden ratio in this context is our direct link to nature's intelligence. Fundamentally, we're looking for NI, nature's intelligence. It's already an operational principle in our DNA, and it can be activated through simple realignment consciously through the prime drivers of human health, performance, and longevity. Well, what are the prime drivers? Well, we took the very unique approach, and this is where we integrated and merge my work with the Fortune 100, because by day, I'm a Fortune 100 strategist. I'm a priority strategist for the Fortune 100. Large organizations, the Bank of America's, Alliances, INGs of the world. And there's a process that is utilized that essentially has a fractal component. It identifies the key fractals of success for a business to focus and work on in order to create the whole of greater harmony, unity, productivity, profitability, and success. And it identifies and sequences the key priorities in the right order to support the whole success. Well, what Dr. Friedman and I did is we merged this priority sequencing system to identify and sequence the priorities of human health, and then we activated each one of those prime drivers with the application of the golden ratio. Well, what does that mean? The sequence, the pyramid, if you will, of health, similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It has foundational elements, it has active elements, and it has, you could say, result elements. The foundation for human health, the number one predictor, because in reality, the golden ratio in the Fibonacci sequence is a predictive principle. We use it and recognize it to predict greater health, greater harmony, greater success in any endeavor. But relative to health, the fundamental predictor of human longevity is the volume of our breath. Oxygen is the prime foundation for human health. And so breathing is chapter 1 in our book. And we bring the golden ratio there because when we utilize the golden ratio, for example, in a very simple application to breath, when you breathe in to the count of 3, a Fibonacci number, and then you breathe out to the count of 5, you automatically readjust your physiology to the golden ratio. You optimize oxygen intake. A shorter in-breath to a longer out-breath maximizes oxygen dwell time in the lungs. A very simple example of how we can utilize the golden ratio to tune our breath, which tunes our physiology. The second driver of human health is water and hydration. Well, it's known, athletes know, that if you're underhydrated by even 1%, your performance suffers. We also know that if you're underhydrated, your organs are strained, and you're more at risk for any number of traumatic events. Well, the ratio of water in the body, inside the cell and outside the cell, follows the golden ratio. And so we know we're in golden ratio harmony, for example, when our hydration is optimal. Well, how do we know that? There's a lot of different theories about, well, how do I know how much water to drink in a day? And it turns out that the best indicator of optimal golden ratio hydration, as exhibited, you could say, in Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, who is an example of beautiful optimal hydration, 62% body water, approximate, is that the excretion, the urine, should never be darker than Chardonnay, a glass of Chardonnay. Our urine should be in the clear to Chardonnay range, which then is our natural indicator that our water tables in the body are in golden ratio harmony. Taking it up the ladder, so we have breath is the first, hydration is the second. The third category is sleep and sunlight, two sides of a critical coin. Studies show that humans, if they don't know what the clock is, will sleep approximately a golden ratio number of hours of sleep in a 24-hour period. You see, every whole of any measure can be divided into the golden ratio. So what's the golden ratio of sleep? Well, if 24 hours is a whole, and we apply 62/38 to find it, it's approximately 8 to 9 hours of sleep or rest in a 24-hour cycle. For most people, they require that to have optimal physiological functioning, right? Some people, there are a few mutants out there who can exist on less sleep, but most of the population, if they don't use an alarm clock, if their body allows it to, is adjusted, is honored to sleep in its natural restorative amount of time, it will be the golden ratio. And so that is another example of tuning ourselves to the golden ratio through sleep. Sunlight is an absolute key factor of health and longevity, and most of us we look at the sun in this day and age as being destructive. In reality, we're starting to discover that it's more destructive not to get sunlight. We need sunlight to tune us. Our biorhythms, our circadian rhythms, our sense of health, vitamin D, all these other elements. So exposing ourselves to a sufficient amount of sun in the day, especially in the morning, resets our circadian rhythms so that our sleep quality is of a sufficient nature. Speaking about nutrition, which is the fourth pyramid level, yes, Dr. Barry Sears, who is one of the preeminent researchers on the zone, he's behind the zone nutrition approach. It turns out, and he's in our book, I've interviewed him, it turns out that he's found that, is it a coincidence, that when you eat a golden ratio of the primary macronutrients are the big ones, the carbohydrates, the proteins, and the fats. When those are adjusted to the golden ratio, approximately at every meal, that is, a healthy golden ratio meal is approximately 40% of our calories from carbohydrates, 30% from healthy fats, and 30% from healthy proteins. At a meal, in a plate, when it contains that, that is like a very, very powerful medicine or drug. It optimizes energy, it reduces inflammation, which is the cause of most disease, and it works with our body systems to give us maximum mental clarity. And it also works with our digestive system optimally as well. So it's a natural diet that totally reflects the golden ratio. If I go through the other key levels quickly, we find that the golden ratio, the next level, and I'm very high level there with nutrition, that's the thickest chapter in Nature's Secret Nutrient, is on nutrition, because we can find it at the macronutrient level and also the micronutrient level. And there's lots of other intriguing applications of finding it and tuning our nutrition to better integrate and reflect alignment with nature's principle of maximum efficiency and performance and maximum harmony. We go up from nutrition to posture. Well, posture is all about making sure that the golden ratio relationships in our spine are harmonized. And that means, again, when we sit and stand tall and erect, the golden ratio relationships between our joints is optimized. Our spine is healthy and straight and buoyant. The distance from our head to our navel and our navel to our feet is optimal, which means that our lungs have maximum capability to expand and fill with healthy breath. When we compress ourselves, when we get into the current modern condition I call DAD, or device addiction disorder, when we're on our phones all the time, or we're always hunching over a computer or the driving, we modulate, you could say that we compromise the golden ratio relationship of our spine, which then compromises our breathing function, our heart function, and it doesn't optimize our body. So we need to be aware that when we sit and stand tall and proud and buoyant, we are also optimizing the golden ratio function of our nervous system. The nerves, the signals function with maximum efficiency, minimum blockage, maximum flow. In exercise, you mentioned the Ironman. The key most fascinating factor is that there is a natural harmony, a natural rhythm in training and rest. You could imagine an ocean wave that builds gently offshore. It rises and falls and rises and falls in greater and greater height until it crashes on the shore. Well, the crashing on the shore, we could say, is your competition day, your race day. And there is a way to take the Fibonacci numbers all the way back, count back from your race day. Say it's 2 months in the future. You can count back on a calendar, plug in the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio, and create a very easy to follow training system that tells you when to train and at what intensity, and tells you when to rest in such a way that you build in a predictive model that will have you at peak performance on race day. And since you're training with nature's path of least resistance and maximum performance, you build in sufficient rest that sets up a catapult principle, a building catapult principle, so you're at your best. 90% of athletes, speaking about the Ironman, I interviewed Mark Allen, who is one of the top Ironman athletes in history. He won the Ironman in Hawaii 6 times. And another one of the top legends is Dave Scott, who's in our book as well. Accessed this principle by training and having ample rest. 90% of athletes, Mark Allen said, are overtrained. They're governed again by the thought that more is better, quantity is better. And what the golden ratio tells us is it's the quality of the training and the quality of the rest that's critical. Exercise, by definition, is actually damaging to the human body. We have micro tears in the tissue. Where the value is, and what we need to honor, is the rest, recovery, recuperation cycle. And what Dr. Ronald Sandler, this genius who discovered this in patterns of human performance, in his athletes getting injured at predictable intervals. Dr. Sandler is a podiatrist, a foot doctor, and he discovered the golden ratio by studying the performance of his patients, that they were getting injured at predictable intervals and often would have peak performances that mirrored the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio. So he created a training system which we have distilled in our book. I've used it to win races. I'm a runner. I'm a road racer, and I love to compete. And I love to do well. And I love to win. And I also love to be injury-free. And so I found in my personal experience that training this way avoids burnout, puts me in the right frame of mind on race day, but gives me something, it lends this building excitement and anticipation that I'm training in such a way that I'm building to a peak, whether it's weeks or months away. The other levels in the book, so just to recapture, we can plug in the golden ratio in very simple ways in the ratio of our inhale to exhale in breathing and optimize breathing. We must remember that the #1 predictor of human longevity is the volume of our breath. Most of people breathe on autopilot. They don't think about their breath. They don't take a full breath. They breathe in the upper chest, whereas most of the blood vessels for breathing are in the lower part of the chest. And when we take a full golden ratio breath, where we inflate the abdomen and then the chest, and then we let it all go, and we do that in approximate golden ratio. That is, we breathe in to a count of 3, exhale to a count of 5, we optimize oxygen intake. When we make certain that our hydration is in an optimal range, as demonstrated by the color of our urine, we know that the golden ratio of water in our cells and in our body is being honored. When we bring the golden ratio into our sleep, and we don't compromise our sleep is vital for performance, for longevity, for beauty, for cognition. When we bring the golden ratio into our diet, Dr. Sears says you're only as good as your last meal. When your meal is a golden ratio meal, you maximize that metabolism, nutrition, you minimize inflammation, you maximize energy, and you optimize your body systems. When you bring it into your posture, when you bring it into exercise, whether you're Olympic caliber or you're simply someone who is you're focused on fitness and health, the number of days you exercise in a week to the number of days you rest, when you tune it to the golden ratio. For example, when you exercise for 4 to 4.5 days in a week, and you allow yourself 2 to 3 days of rest, that's a golden ratio approximately, you optimize your exercise. And there's other examples of how it plays in our detoxification, in our happiness. The ratio of our expansive thinking, our positive mindset, has been shown to be generally in golden ratio to our more contractive or our more solitary mindset, you could say. Beauty, it's at play in beauty. There's ways we can optimize our natural attractiveness, man or woman. And in the end, we find that bringing these factors together, I'll conclude with modern medicine is now validating that the golden ratio of your the diastolic to the systolic blood pressure, when that is close to golden ratio, it's predictive of longevity and performance. When cholesterol levels exhibit the golden ratio, it's optimal. We're finding again and again, modern medicine is validating that when body systems correlate to the golden ratio, we have maximum functioning and efficiency, and it's more predictive of greater health and longevity.
Evo za kraj, sve ove priče su potkrepljene raznim neobičnim brojkama i zapravo je zanimljivo uočiti kako taj zlatni rez nije uvijek potpuno jasno vidljiv. Evo recimo nekoliko primjera. Spominjali ste recimo omjer kratkih i dugih plućnih cjevčica ili smanjivanje cjevčica koje se poklapaju s Fibonaccijem. Međutim, zanimljivo je i također da omjer omega-6 i omega-3 ulja, esencijalnih masti koje su se koristile za razvoj evolucije, bi trebao biti 1,6:1, dok je danas na zapadu 16:1 ili u Indiji 38:1. Ili ako je riječ recimo o sunčevim zrakama, onim zdravom, ultraljubičastom zračenju, koji obično se naziva UVA i UVB, zanimljivo je što između 320 i 400 nanometara je 80, između 290 i 320 je 30. Kad se to podijeli, dobiva se 2,6, što je na prvi pogled čudan broj, ali u stvari umnožak 2 puta 1,6 puta 1,6. I nevjerojatno je na koliko načina se taj fraktalni uzorak skriva, prikriva i tako. Pogotovo je neobičan podatak da se ponekad čak i gradovi i države ili veze na internetu same po sebi slažu u fraktalne skokove. Recimo, kakav je to neobičan je podatak da 2009. je 800 milijuna ljudi na svijetu gladovalo, a 1,3 milijarde je bilo predebelo, što iznosi, kad se podijeli, 1,62 i opet. Tako da kada vidimo na koliko načina je od sunčevog zračenja do društva i same možda neke samoorganizacije svemira prisutno to zračenje, taj zlatni rez, evo zadnje pitanje za par minuta, koje je ovako zapravo najintrigantnije. Vidjeli smo da se spominje Božji omjer, znači tu je nekakva veza prema nekakvoj duhovnosti, također zdravlje i slično. Međutim, kako bi se zlatni rez mogao primijeniti na ustroj društva, recimo? Jeste li razmišljali o tome?
Well, perhaps one of the most powerful ways to see it is in communication. We have, think about it, 2 ears and 1 mouth. There's an approximate golden ratio in communication, which dances between 60% of the time speaking, 60% of the time listening. When we have a dance of the ratio in any engagement, there's going to be greater harmony. If I exceed too much speaking, if I go to 70, 80, 90%, 100% in a conversation too long, then harmony drops. If I'm understanding that listening, I've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. It speaks to the fact that I ought to probably listen around 60% of the time and maybe speak 40% of the time, right? If I do that with another person, it will tend to harmonize communication, speaking and bringing it down just to a one-to-one social level. We find that also it's an intriguing phenomenon that when we look again and again and again, we'll find golden ratio distributions. For example, in a room of people where we may be lecturing, if you take a sample of 100 people in a room, there'll be approximately a golden ratio, roughly 60%, of the people who will fall into the category of very, very interested to curious. And the smaller part, roughly 40, 30%, will be a bit more cautious, or maybe even a bit more conservative. Again and again we see it at play. But I want to just really add the thought again that the recognition of the golden ratio is a trigger. It's a fractal principle. The golden ratio is a fractal principle. We see it at the small scale. Nobel Prize caliber French researcher named Jean-Claude Perez, his work may someday be part of Nobel Prize literature. He may win the prize at some point because he's discovering at a very, very fascinating level that the codons in our DNA are packed according to the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio. And it's predictive of health. It's predictive of something very, very powerful and provocative. Bringing it all the way back up, when we engage, when we're aware, we don't have to be a PhD in mathematics to access and understand that recognizing fractals, recognizing the golden ratio, triggers what Einstein called, the factor that Einstein called more important than knowledge, imagination. Whenever we realize that there's a small part that has the connection to the whole, our imagination is engaged and triggered. And imagination is the gateway. It's the golden key to understanding and asking questions and starting to comprehend the incredible grandeur and grand design of the universe. Khalil Gibran, the wonderful poet, the Lebanese-American poet, said, I discovered the secret of the sea upon meditation of the dewdrop. So when you think about that from a poetic nature, from a personal growth and evolution and transformation nature, the small truly does contain the all.
Na koji način primjenjujete fraktalne principe prilikom razmišljanja ili savjetovanja u poslovnim strategijama? Već ste prije nešto u vezi toga spominjali, međutim, eto, puno ljudi ima svoje obrte, male firme, ne moramo pričati o 100 najvećih kompanija, znači pričamo o jednoj, recimo, tvrtki koja je manja ili sitnija. Na koji način oni mogu, dakle, već sa ovom idejom da postoji nešto što je u omjeru 1:6 ili 0,6 ili 62:38 ili u krajnjoj liniji, eto, u ovoj vašoj knjizi svako poglavlje ima Fibonacci broj, tako da već nakon 20 stranica smo na 233. poglavlju. Na koji način se u tako ekonomskim cjelinama može razmišljati o implementaciji fraktalnog principa?
Well, it can be implemented very, very elegantly and simply in the design of our logo. It turns out that the logos of the great organizations on the planet, which is something that anyone at any scale, a startup business, can learn from, the Apple logo, the Google logo, the Starbucks logo, the Toyota logo, all, upon study, and it's in the book, conform with remarkable precision to the golden ratio. Why? Because when we see it, it lights us up. It delights us. It's a magnetic principle when it's visual, in a logo, for example, on a business card, on a web page, in advertising. They know that when they bring the golden ratio and the placement of key data and information, whether, again, it's a web page, a business card, the design of our book, for example. We have a master golden ratio designer in America, Tom Roychek, and he utilizes the golden ratio to place the key elements. Again, it triggers recognition because it's in us. It's in our body. It's in the way our mind moves. It's in our brain waves. It's in the structure of our cranium. It's been discovered now. The structure, the key elements of our cranium, in our brain, in our skull, in our body. When we see it outside, it lights us up inside, visually. In golden ratio dynamics, we could say, the fractal principle says that, again, if we identify the key fractals, the key fractal success drivers, let's say, in any business, if you're a startup, you're one person, and you want to identify where are the most powerful places to focus and start. Again, similar to the butterfly effect, fractals are like the butterfly effect. And there's a very simple and elegant technology and process utilizing the golden ratio, utilizing this Hoshin North Star process to identify and sequence the key priorities. You bring these things together and you set the stage to identify and work on the key foundational fractals of success in any business, again, whether it's a startup, in any industry, all the way up to Apple. And what I mean by that fundamentally as an example is the core principle of success for human beings, for businesses. Businesses are nothing but collections of people. Our values, fundamental values and principles. That is the core fractal of success for business at any scale. And when we utilize the golden ratio, and when we understand that the key fractal of success are your values, we understand that's the root of the tree. You mentioned the lungs and the alveoli, which are the little microtubule branches that in the lungs are in perfect golden ratio as they branch, just like the roots of a tree and the branches of a tree. It's an as above, so below principle. When we identify the root values of an organization, and we identify and codify and bring to life that core fractal, it then helps us to build and support and nourish the whole of the business. So that is one very, very simple example of how we can identify and work with the fractal of success, one might say, that's common to every business, but many times is either invisible or ignored. We tend to jump into action, instead of going to foundational principles. I'll close with this thought that fractals are akin, they're related to the foundation of core action in a business. We tend to focus on action and results. And what the fractal principle says is, back up to the root, back up to the foundation, identify the core fractals, that if you nourish, like the roots of a tree, if you nourish those roots, they will deliver and guide the right action, whether it's a person or a 100,000 person team, that will lead to greater and greater results. And so the fractal principle again says all is in small. That means let's identify the butterfly effects. Let's identify the key fractals. Let's do that together. Let's align and focus and nourish those, and we can again predict with greater precision, greater success in every measure. The beautiful thing is that when we work with this dynamic of the golden ratio as a master fractal, we support and achieve success on every level, not just financial. Financial success is only one measure of success, and if it's not balanced with a care and a compassion for the human spirit and for the earth and for how we're all connected, it's imbalanced success. We have to even question if it's success. And so the golden ratio and the fractal principle is a way to invite nature's intelligence into business so that it is dynamic, it is compassionate, and it is more complete.
Evo, gospodine Kroos, nećemo odati sve poslovne tajne da ne bi nastala iznenadna gužva u ovih 100 koji su se tu postavili. Hvala vam, želim vam sreću u daljnjim vašim predavanjima, kako ovim poslovnim, tako ovim vezanim uz fraktalnu geometriju. Ko zna, do neke sljedeće prilike. Možda se opet vidimo, stoga doviđenja.
Thank you. Hvala, Krešimir.
Eto, hvala i vama na pažnji. Potraga za zlatnim rezom ili fraktalnošću svemira, u stvari otkrivanje te unutarnje geometrije svemira i života, tako naravno i čovjeka, nekako je zaboravljena, možda je gurnuta u stranu, te se dugo vremena povezivalo najviše sa umjetnošću i estetikom. No, otkrivanje zlatnog reza u svakom aspektu svijeta oko nas možda je nešto više od tek kurioziteta kojim ćemo se mi usput podiviti. Naime, ako je cijeli svemir i život od galaksija do atoma, čovjeka, fizike, kemije, biologije podređen tom matematičkom vrtlogu, nameće se pitanje možemo li mi sami sebi uopće dozvoliti da ne budemo. Pitanje je teško, ali noć je i dalje laka.